Are you? Let's do that. Thanks, Samantha.
I remembered.
Because there's a lot of people who watch the recordings later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
hi to everybody there, and really big welcome to Sky and Ian, who's also joined in after a while. And, I mean, we normally start our session with a wonderful quick meditation by Samantha, so we'll do that. I think let's get into that while we wait for others to come in. We can just do a 3-minute or so one, if that's fine, Samantha. Then we'll dive into things.
Yeah, just settle us into our body. So I invite you to close down your eyes, and if it feels more comfortable, you turn your camera off. And just fully arrive here in this moment. Just observing any thoughts. And just becoming the watcher of the thoughts. Notice any sounds that you hear. Notice any sensations in the body. I'm just inviting you in this now moment to let go and relax. I'm just inviting to take 3 deep breaths in through the nose for the count of 4 and out through the mouth for the count of 6. Breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, holding for a moment, then breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then repeat this breath 2 more times. Breathe in a white light as you expand your lungs and allow it to cleanse your body. Then breathing out on the exhale all that no longer serves you. And just letting it all go. And take 1 more deep breath in through the nose, breathing in that white light. And just letting it all go with the exhale. Just allowing yourself to surrender. Coming back to your natural breath. Just observing the breath as it so effortlessly flows in and out. how it requires no effort. Remind you that this is our true nature. Be proud of yourself for giving you this mindful moment. This moment to be. This moment to pause. And then just bring in your awareness back into this now moment and back into your body. Maybe give your hands and toes a little wiggle. Maybe you have a nice stretch. And then when you're ready, you may open your eyes and come back to this present moment. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah.
Changes in pace.
Yes. Hi, Bettina.
Hi,
Good
Bettina.
morning. I'm so sorry I missed the meditation, which I assume you just did.
That's fine. You look very relaxed anyway.
Oh, well, I'm more likely not quite awake yet.
Right.
I had a very short night for some reason, so I'm
Okay.
half asleep.
No worries.
I'm half asleep at the other side.
Yes, but
Don't
because
worry.
it's so late, right?
Yeah. We'll awaken each other. So let's maybe do a very, very quick
Wonderful.
introduction from maybe Ian, if you want to just do a very quick intro, and then Bettina and Samantha. Yeah.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I mean, it's so good to meet you all. Really good to meet you. I'm Ian. As I said before, I'm in Australia, although I did live in the States for 20 years, Sky. So I know and love California too.
Wonderful.
I am. I think the main thing that I'm doing these days is I got together with 5 other friends, and we're building what we're calling the Wisdom Path project, which is to support people to build conscious communities at scale. Somewhere close to 7 billion would be good to help the world. And so, you know, the first 6 of us are working on that, but we believe anybody who comes along is part of the Wisdom Path, so we want to help support that. And
Wonderful.
so that's the work I'm doing at the moment, having I guess I'm old enough not to have a day job anymore, which is kind of nice.
What part of Australia are you from?
I'm from the south, but that picture behind me is where I'm living at the moment. So in rural Australia, near Byron Bay, which is up the east coast.
Like near Cairns?
Sorry?
Near Cairns?
No, Kansas.
About 600 miles south. So about halfway up Australia.
Okay.
Between Sydney and Brisbane, basically, but a beautiful part of the world, and I feel blessed to be here. And the last from I helped start a investment business, which is a crowdfunding business for startups in Australia, which was my day job for a while, and also a kinesiologist for about 20 years now. So a mixture of things. I discovered is you get old enough, you have a big mixture of things. But I'm really grateful to I met Anuraj relatively recently, and see what he's doing with White Mirror, and so wonderful to see groups of people committed to the beautiful things that you are committed to. So wonderful to meet you. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Maybe Bettina, if you want to do a quick intro.
Yes, Bettina von Stamm. After 31 years in the UK, I've just earlier this year moved back to Germany. And while I'm from Kiel, which is right in the north, I'm now in Munich, which is right in the south. And I love that I can say that I just feel I have arrived. When people ask me whether I've settled in, I don't need to settle in. I have arrived, which is just a wonderful feeling. And in terms of profession, what I do professionally, that is something I'm trying to figure out at the moment, because I've been with one organization. I've been with an NGO for five years, and for various reasons I left the beginning of this year, which was wonderful because I had time to say goodbye to 31 years in the UK, or had the space and the time to say goodbye properly. And now I am in the process of discovering what I'm meant to do with the next part of my life.
Wonderful. Well, you've written so many amazing books on innovation, and yeah, quite an amazing career there. So thank you, Bettina. Samantha.
What are your books? I wanted to hear what Bettina's books are.
Oh, the books.
Sort of enabling and understanding and enabling innovation. That's the path I'm on. That's how I always describe it. And so I started off with a textbook because I felt there wasn't really at the time. So that's 20 years ago. At the time, there weren't many textbooks that I felt were addressing innovation from a perspective that was other than technology. And so my focus is really around people and culture and leadership. And and design, the role of design. So it was, before it was called design thinking. So the textbook is managing innovation, design, and creativity. And then I feel very strongly about the holistic approach. So there's another book called The Innovation Wave, which introduces the need for a holistic approach to when you want to create an innovative organization. And that couple more. I don't want to take up all the time, but all about innovation and increasingly about sustainability and diversity and collaboration and the dark side of innovation and stuff like that.
Very important. Yeah, great.
I watched Transcendence last night, and that just reminded me, because I'd not seen it before, but it was like the dark side of it, but also but yeah, I'm Samantha, and I'm a hairdresser by trade, but I'm a conscious hairdresser. So I incorporate like energy work and angel card readings and self-love coaching. And yeah, I'm basically a facilitator of love and light. So it's really hard to put a label on the things that I do. But I feel I'm here to help tune people back into their true frequency in many of its different forms.
Wonderful. Great healer, I can tell you.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Daphne's just joined us. Hi, Daphne. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. How are you? Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Anuraj.
Hey.
There you are.
I tried to put some kind of light, but I'm gonna have a shadow because this room is kind of dark where I am.
Yeah, good. Where are you again? You're in Atlanta,
I'm
right?
in Maryland, close to DC. I'm on a DC line.
Sure. Yeah. You want to just do a very quick intro, please?
Yeah, Samantha and everyone. My name is Dr. Daphne Phillip. I am an educator by trade and gifted and ordained by God, because for some reason I can't seem to leave it. So I have to blame God for this. I did everything in the world as jobs. And I think even now, I still don't have a solid plan what God's gonna do with all the gifts that He gave me with education. So in this space, I love technology. I have been a STEM teacher and math teacher for 10 to 15 years with the same school district. my doctorate degree is in learning, instruction, and innovation. I own and founded a Parallelogram Institute. I used to tutor and do a lot of STEM club stuff after school, but when COVID happened, I had to put that online. It turns out that's not something I really care for. I like it better face to face than I did like it online. So this site is actually just sitting there just sitting there. I had a innovative World Teacher Summit to focus on the teachers as learners and the teachers as instructors and the teachers as innovators. And my goal was to show how if any one of those things is misaligned, there's going to be issue. And then usually that is the problem with education. There's something that's missing either from the learner perspective, from the instructor perspective, or from the innovative part. So those are the three main categories. My passion is for teachers and teachers only, because that's the piece of the puzzle that I feel that have been missed. Anytime somebody address educators, they address educators for the sole purpose to get them to do things for students. Is I've yet to see a movement where there's true intention on taking care of the educator as the person, make sure that they are whole, they're in a position that they like, they're doing something that they enjoy. And with that being said, that all that's with them, then kids see it, whether they share it out loud or not. Young people pick up on things. They pick up on the negativity you try to hide. They pick up on the persona you show up with day by day. So in this space, really, I got here because I invited Thomas to my summit as a speaker. And then I had Dr. Jessica Ash as a speaker. And oh my God, thank the tech founder. She's gonna be mad with me because we talk a lot. She's from Canada. She does Dream Think. Oh my God, Heidi Koperi was part of my summit, among other. I had like 30 people from 10 different countries represented on that summit. And that's how I got into you guys. So with Flo, I flow with Brian because he's a STEM, and Debbie, he's a STEM. Yes, Bettina, yes. I was listening to you and I loved it. You're also on the path of figure out what your next life journey is going to be. And that's exactly where I am right now. And I'm listening to everybody. I'm staying focused on the ground because I don't want fear and anxiety to kick in, because I'm more of a black and white personality. I need a plan. I need to know what's going to happen. And I want to learn to be more like you guys that live in the present with all this e-learning and all this other stuff. No, I'm logical, statistical. I need a grid and I need a map. You can't just tell me here, go somewhere. I'm like, where's the direction? Oh, you make it up along the way. You're going to lose me. And Anuraj, I read about the information, but I really don't know exactly what mirror is, because all of this I'm learning all within a week. My friend Ian, I love to see you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see you. I feel like I was a good place when I see somebody from the Flow group wherever I go. So that's my anchor right now. I have no idea what to add to this space. However, I am clear on my vision and my mission to care for my educators, because that's my niche and that's my world. So that's all I have.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, thank you all for the conscious presence. And again, White Mirror really being a very open community. And I think we're still on our journey to rediscover and see how we can really work together a lot more cohesively and take humanity to new heights. And I think it's just really, as an open community, a movement, philosophy to a regard. And that's why I think we've had some people who've been involved with the early stage, really trying to help create transmedia storytelling elements. But I think what I really see is amazing, great minds coming together to look at ideas stage left, and really collision of those to make a more meaningful impact. And as we talk about the UN SDGs, how do we really align ourselves to create something more of true impact for humanity? And that's where we kept it as a very open community, and interesting stories that can be flipped on a very utopian model that we call Vitopia. So without too much more further ado, I want to really let Sky take on. But before that, I think Mario's just joined us. Mario, we just had a very quick round of introductions. Do you want to do a quick, very brief 1-minute intro, please? Your voice is a bit
Audio is difficult.
bit better.
How about now?
Still not very clear, but try. Yeah, so.
Greetings from Budapest. I'm project manager by trade, who contributes to White Mirror's stage.
Great. Maybe it'll get better as we move along. We've also had Peter Story join us. Again, they're among some of the newer members new family who've come on board at White Mirror, because most people here are more recent. Peter, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Hi.
Just doing a
Hi,
very
Anuraj.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Anuraj. Vinod, yeah.
Can you do a very brief intro? Just a quick with your background. Just
Okay. Sure.
minute. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. So, what a life, what a background, what a story, what a narrative. Peter Story's my name. Hi, everyone. Where to start? I guess a seeker after truth and after answers. A fellow solution seeker, provider to, so really it's been quite a journey to try to understand what this world is and where we're heading together, and
Amen.
Amen, yeah. And so I've studied quite a bit of and looked into many things, many cultures, many traditions, and still looking and trying to contribute. So that's my path, and it's been quite exciting to see all these ideas and inputs, and I really love the White Mirror concepts. Really concept and its aim. So yeah, here I am. I'm
Great to
still
meet you.
just at work today. Okay, that's
Sure.
it.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jets.
no, and
Okay.
you have a very close association with HeartMath, which has been an amazing institute and work that they've done in terms of consciousness raising and the brain coherence stuff. So
Absolutely, yeah.
great, valuable
I can
knowledge.
speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Sky, sorry about the lengthy intros there, just for your
That's
benefit.
okay.
Let's get into.
Do you want to
Yeah.
put me as host so I can share my screen?
Sure, Samantha, please.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. It's my first time here as well. And my name is Sky Nelson Isaacs. I am a physicist and an author, also a musician. And my first introduction to understanding the cosmos was in spiritual traditions. My parents were followers of Sri Swami Satchidananda, who is a spiritual guru, or was a spiritual guru. He died in about 1999, I think. And he was my guru from a young age. So I grew up thinking that truth is one, paths are many. And now I'm just trying to share my screen. But this sort of unified view of the world from early on, that we're seeking a common language. And then I went to school and studied physics in college at UC Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, and then went on to do a number of things, including high school physics teacher. So Daphne, I really resonate with your story. And I really agree that educators are always, the conversation with educators is always a one-sided conversation, like, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? What are you going to do to make my children learn? And it's just such a backwards misunderstanding of the way education works and the way society works. In my experience in the classroom, not only did we have budget cuts by like 60% over 2 years, which is an unfathomable decrease in funding to do your job, but also the expectations of manipulating the minds of these people who have the rest of their day is lived in a different context with cultural influences and family influences that have nothing to do with what you're trying to teach them in the classroom. Is there's no cultural support for education in the United States of America, at least. Daphne, I didn't get where you were from. Are you from the UK?
No, I'm in DC.
Oh, in DC. Okay, so
yeah. Guess what? Everything you
similarity.
say is 10 times the same. So you in the US too, right, Sky?
Yeah, California.
Oh yeah, I'm in DC. I'm 3 hours.
Yeah. So I really resonate with that, and thank you for doing the work you do. It's awesome. So in the past 10 or even 20 years, I've been trying to bridge these worlds between spirituality and physics. And I went back to school and got a master's degree in physics, and went back really with the intention of figuring out a problem that I had sort of seen from early on. I got exposed to Fourier transforms and holograms in college. We built a hologram in one lab experience, and I just knew right away when I was working with this stuff that it was fundamentally different from what was being explained to me in the classroom. That there was something about it. In brief, what it is that we're taught everything in science is really reductionist, and we're taught chemistry. In chemistry, everything is made of particles, and those particles are on a periodic table, and you can put them together, and when you put them all together, you get the thing. You get the person, or the cup, or the ceramics, or whatever it is, from all the parts, and there's just no distinction between the parts and the whole. But in a hologram, there is very much a thing that we call the whole, which is independent of the parts. And I saw that early on, like when I was 18 or 19 in the lab. I just like, wait, there's something here that nobody's talking about, which is this one-to-all relationship. And it's very much, as digital phenomena has caught on, you see this in digital music, you see it in digital video and digital photographs. I'm going to give you some examples today. So this led me to explore also this fundamental underlying question of quantum mechanics that is really unresolved, which is how do we treat time in quantum mechanics? It was the major unresolved thing of the original quantum mechanics formalism, and it turns out to be sort of solved in quantum field theory. But from my purist point of view, it really isn't solved. And so my work is to try and put all these pieces together that have sort of showed up in my life and reformulate what I think would have been the original quantum mechanics if we had really understood what was going on. And then to interpret it. It's actually, the formulation is not actually that unique. It's that I also come from a background of meditative practice and sort of different ways of looking at things, and at times psychedelic experiences that have given me, I think, a little more insight as to how to interpret a timeless thing, right? How do you interpret something that's spaceless and timeless? It takes a lot of gymnastics to really understand, like, what do we make of that? So I'm going to try and give you an overview of that tonight. The purpose of this is really about wholeness. I have 2 books out, Living in Flow and Leap to Wholeness. Living in Flow is an introduction to my story and trying to understand synchronicity and develop a science of synchronicity. And when we pay attention to synchronicities in our life, we experience more flow. We get out of our own way. We're surprised by life more often, by the synchronicities, the meaningful coincidences, and then we get into more flow. And then I realized that what's this all pointing to is the sense of wholeness. And what I think is I can point to in the world is that we're seeking wholeness. When we look at our education system and how we're actually educating people to be good drone workers, but not to be curious, we don't have a system of education that tries to make people whole. We don't have a system of government that tries to make people whole. We try to, govern in a way that people have a vote, but we don't urge them to become contributors to the economy in a creative way. We just urge them to sort of contribute their business or their hours and their sweat to make the economy grind away. So there's many ways in which the structures that we live within don't actually serve us to try and become whole people. They actually just try to keep us in the system working as parts. So I'm passionate about taking this mindset further and developing a sense of what wholeness is from a scientific point of view, and applying that to a strategy for becoming whole in our society and dealing ultimately with equity issues, fairness, and privilege. Unearned privilege, I think, is a major factor or consequence of a lack of wholeness in our mindset and in our communities. So, and then climate change, I think, also comes from this sense of not being on the same page, not being whole within ourselves, and therefore not being able to come together and listen to each other at a deep level. So I'd like to tie in research on time and synchronicity with a sense of whole and wholeness with these bigger issues that we're trying to deal with in the world today, of how to come together on big challenges that we face. So I hope you can follow me on that one. So starting with research on time, there are different notions of time. I'm going to skip through, this is a longer slide deck, I'm going to skip through most of it, but I'll start with this notion of time. In physics, time is just this ticking clock, right? It's called Chronos, the linear passage of time, as Hippocrates talked about it. But the Aboriginals in Western Australia, some of you might know more than me, I don't know, have a different understanding of time, where we're experiencing a dream, and the past continues to be present in the present. So there's this eternalness to it. And that's what my research also points to from a Western physics point of view. So I think there's a really interesting connection between what science is pointing us to and what some cultures have always known. In the Greek philosophy, there's also this notion of Chronos and Kairos. Kairos points to an opportune or moment in time, not just the ticking of the clock, but which moments are actually best for which purposes. And this really points to this notion of synchronicity, of meaningful opportunities. So my main contribution in the paper is the following. Instead of life coming at you, like you just have to have a limited number of years to live and you got to sort of figure out how to fit in the system and get to retirement, thinking of yourself along a timeline. Time is not a drop of sand in an hourglass, but an extended thing, extended one-dimensional story. And as soon as you extend time out and say that the now is connected to the future in some way, then you actually ask, where is it going? What is the storyline that I'm on right now? And this really aligns with actually Peter's last name, actually. And it really aligns with the notion of synchronicity. Well, synchronicity is a future experience that somehow influences the present to unfold a certain way. So we have a coincidence where I run into somebody at the airport, where let's say my plane gets delayed and I'm frustrated in the moment, but then I realize I have to go to a different gate and I bump into an old friend. So it wasn't clear in the moment what was happening, but as I went forward in time, I realized there was some purpose to this set of events. So synchronicities have to do with a synchronicity, a togetherness in time. So this is the multiverse. This is the branching set of possibilities. And just to this group, I'll point out that what we're doing here in the white mirror is looking at which of these timelines we are wanting to connect to. And if you're focused on black mirror and the negative, pessimistic view of how things are going to unfold, those are also branches that exist. So the question is, how do we unfold our spiritual or meditative or mindfulness or science theme or whatever it is that we're contributing positively in the world to allow us to move through the tree in the branches we want to experience. And I suggest in my book, Leap to Wholeness, that really this is about how we filter the world, what kinds of thoughts and feelings we choose to nurture, and how we learn to nurture the ones that actually get us where we want to go. So getting out of reactivity, getting out of resentment, and moving towards self-love, and therefore also love of others. So I want to jump to this scientific or technological views and see if you can get this metaphor. So in digital photography, you have this technology where you can take a picture on the left, which we'll call the territory. This is like the physical world. And you can convert it into a map. And this map doesn't look like the territory at all, right? But it is equivalent. I'll just tell you that. The map on the right is equivalent to the territory on the left. How is it equivalent? Well, it's a Fourier transform. And that's a very common mathematical technique which converts the layout of the picture into its patterns or into its frequencies. So it's a frequency decomposition. And in the center of the map, there's a little bright kind of region. That's the really low frequencies, the places that don't vary very quickly across the picture. in color or brightness. And towards the outside is the high frequencies where everything is varying quickly. So let me explain to you how this works. The frequency domain is the most important thing I'll talk to you about tonight. And some of you who are engineers will be very familiar with this. If you have a pattern like the one on the top left, the vertical stripes, that pattern is filling up the entire picture, the entire square. It's a broad pattern of, it's not localized, it fills up the entire space. But it's very consistent and it's very slowly varying, and it's varying from left to right. So I can represent it by two dots in the frequency domain down below. Dots that are close to the center because it's a slowly varying low frequency signal, and horizontally oriented because that's the direction of the lines. So you can see the other two cases, you have these more frequently varying lines that are going up and down or varying from the up and down direction. So you have 2 points that are far apart from the origin and in the up and down direction. And you can do this in different angles. And so you can lay these different types of literally just zebra stripes. You took a whole zoo of zebras and laid them on top of each other in different directions and made them partially transparent. You would get these patterns of interference, kind of like on pantyhose or on a screen in a window. You see these patterns of moire patterns. And when you do that just the right way, like here's an example of the same thing. The territory, there's a set of lines that go diagonally, 2 points that go off to the angle. And if I keep adding these together in just the right way, using lots and lots of frequencies, I start to get interfering patterns. And the patterns get more complex. It seems like a randomness, but eventually you start to see that in that randomness emerges the actual picture, the image I'm trying to show. So this is a way of decomposing the original image, the original territory, into forms that are holistic. Because these patterns that we're using are holistic. They're not localized, they extend over all of space. And so you can see here in the video that I can create the same picture from pixels on the left. I just add pixels one at a time in a random fashion, and I get the image. But I can actually get the same results by adding patterns, not pixels. So I'll play that one more time. I'm just adding the same number of patterns as I am adding pixels. It's just the image emerges in sort of a different way, but it's really the same amount of data giving the same result. And so you can see that this is really the key non-locality element, that in a world that's created by pixels, kind of like a world that's created from chemistry, where every person is decomposed into their atoms. Yes, it's reductionist. But in a world that's created from patterns, and the patterns extend over all of space, that's what quantum field theory is really about. And we're not talking just like waves that extend over the length of Earth. We're talking about cosmic waves. Like there's no length to them at all. They just exist in the entire cosmos, which is 14 billion years wide as far as we can see, and it goes beyond that. So it really calls into question our understanding of physical reality. And if you can represent physics by this type of mathematics. And you can do things like apply a filter to it. So here I'm going to filter out the high frequencies. And what I've done here is apply a very specific mask to the outside of the map, but I've blurred the entire photograph, the entire territory. So my change has affected everything. And so thinking about this and what it means in terms of when you make a change to the frequency space, if you were to do an experiment that made a change to the frequency space or the frequency domain, right in your lab, you would actually be affecting everything in the cosmos, because that's the way the one-to-all relationship works between these domains. And I can do a different type of filter where I really filter it down and I get rid of most of the details. I've lost all the details because all the high frequencies are gone. They're all blackened out. Only the low frequencies are there, which are the very broad brush strokes. You see that? And then finally, I can change it around and I can keep the outside and move the inside. And notice what you see there. You've got only the edges. So I've highlighted the edges where everything's changing rapidly, but all the other information where it's just kind of gradual has been removed, because that's at the center. So what we're doing is we're affecting the whole of reality with these local maps, and filters. And I take this analogy and, well, first of all, I'll come back to how this applies to our way of thinking about the world. But just a little brief introduction on holograms. if you to create a hologram, you shine a laser on a film, on a city image object, and then on a mirror, and you interfere the light, you get a holographic image. I won't go into that any further. But the interesting thing about holograms, you have a depth perception that's embedded into the film. So if I look at it head on, I get one view. If I look at it from the side, I get a different view, left or right. It looks as if the object's really there. The whole city is like floating in space. And the star is representing a point in the foreground, and the circle is representing a point in the background. So they move relative to each other, like parallax. So each angle of the observer is a unique perspective on the whole image. The whole of reality is somehow embedded into this film, and you can access it from different angles and see the film in different ways, as if the city is really there. And that's the sense in which there is wholeness to the film. And if you apply like a curtain, or if you cut off part of the hologram, it doesn't actually remove part of the image. Like in a photograph, if I cut half of it off, I remove the part that I removed. In a hologram, if I cover half of it, and I just tilt my view and look from the side, I see what's behind it. It's as if I put up a curtain and looking out a window. And I can actually cut off half of the hologram and then move my head to the left and look behind the part I cut off into space, and I can see what I cut away. So the information that exists is not in a particular point in the hologram, it's distributed everywhere in the hologram. In the same sense, information about physical reality, if we can formulate physics in this way, is distributed everywhere. It's not local. You are not only centered where you are. In the frequency domain, our selves are all centered around the origin of frequency, and we're overlapping in some way, but it's not physical space, but it's definitely not separate. So there's a sense in which we have a timeless and a spaceless representation of things, which really challenges our whole notion of materiality and reductionism. And it has some testable consequences. So just to briefly show you the physics work, there's really just two postulates. And these postulates basically say you're going to treat this like regular quantum mechanics, but you're going to actually add time as it's a 4-dimensional signal instead of a 3-dimensional signal. Everything is going to be signals in engineering, like signals in data processing. And you've got these 4-dimensional signals, just like you would in relativity theory, space and time. It's 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. You just walk through the mathematics as if that's the case. And then you say the interaction is accomplished in exactly the same way as it is with these filters. And I apply a filter to the frequency domain, I do a convolution, and I get the resulting picture outcome. So I'm just applying the mathematics of image processing to the mathematics of space-time wave functions. And what you get is, in waves, in image processing, you have like waves coming from the left, hitting the flat waves. They're hitting some kind of acetate or some kind of, Daphne probably remembers these things. You put them on the screen and they project up on the wall for the students. And so light gets formulated or turns into a sort of waveform after it passes through that and travels through space. And what it does is it gets converted to the frequency domain, as we've been talking about. And that's how space-time travel is computed. And it's converted back to the frequency, to the spatial domain, using a lens on the right. And this is the basic mathematics of quantum of optics. And I just apply this mathematics to quantum mechanics. And you get this equation at the bottom. And let me explain what this equation is. This is the main equation. It's the most important one. It's psi prime equals Fourier transform inverse, etc. But what this is saying is that the evolution of time and physics is this alternation between regular space-time that we're in right now and the frequency domain. We just go back and forth. When something evolves in time is this back and forth between these two domains. And this is known, you can actually show that this equation I've written down here at the bottom is equivalent to the Feynman path integral. And it's not hard to show. So a Feynman path integral is just a recursive Fourier transform in time. And so what my work is essentially doing is saying, we can no longer slice up time into step by step by step according to the clock, according to Chronos. We have to look at time as a whole. And maybe I'll give you, jump ahead so we can have some time for conversation. Histories are flexible. This is the main outcome. So you have light traveling from the sun to the earth. It takes many different possible paths based on maybe bumping into some dust particles or whatever it hits. And it's only at the end point, here's the key point of all of this. It's at the end point that the entire path becomes determined. The path exists as a whole. The title of my paper, by the way, is called Space-Time Paths as a Whole. So I'm looking at how space-time, the evolution of things through space-time, it has to be seen as holistic. And then I interpret what that means in the following way. The potential paths exist here, but it's not until the very end point that the whole path is defined. And that's the point at which you observe the light. When you look at the sun, you see the sun. But it's only at that point that one path becomes actual. And it sort of falls into place, like retroactively. And this whole 8-minute period of time of light traveling from sun to earth becomes retroactively true. So what I want you to think about is what would it be like if things in your life became retroactively true? When you bump into somebody at the airport and that becomes retroactively true that they were there at the airport, what had to happen to bring them to the airport? And that's really what the study of synchronicity is. How does the world unfold around us to match our expectations or our choice of filter, how we look, our attitude? And it becomes really important to start to understand what is the role of emotions, what is the role of attitude in how we act in the world, and does that influence the outcome retroactively of how things unfold, bringing us synchronicities, opportunities for good or growth or for negative devolution into war and chaos, or business deals that we're mean to each other and things fall apart, or whatever it might be. So this is actually something that comes out of language too. It's called contextuality. If you have a sentence like the old train, you think about it like a train leaving the station. But if you change the end of the sentence, the old train, the young, then the meaning is something more like this: your elders are training your youth. So the meaning of the beginning of the sentence changes based upon the end point. And that's what my work points to, this notion that the whole journey actually is dependent upon the end point. And then we look at how synchronicities can unfold in that model. So I think I spoke about synchronicity. There's some testability. There's really a connection to Bohm. Anybody familiar with Bohm's implicate order? What I'm doing, I hope to say, is essentially the foundation of Bohm's implicate order in mathematics and physics. I've taken it to, I think, fruition, I hope. So the frequency domain is the implicate order, and the space-time domain that we're in is the explicate order, the hidden order, the hidden reality versus the visual reality. And then I think we can connect this to the other traditions like Maya from ancient Vedanta. Maya is this illusion of the world, that the world is an illusion. And I think we can connect the filters, the way we filter the world in our minds, and what we perceive of the world, and how that influences the synchronicities that come to us, as what Vedanta talks about, the illusion of the world around us, the Maya. So I'm going to pause and open it up for conversation. Here's my research link if you want to copy that down. And I have a paper on medium.com that I wrote called Holographic Simulation Theory, and a couple of interviews that you might find interesting, both written and plenty of stuff video. Thanks for listening to me today, and I hope that you might have some questions or discussion you want to bring up.
Nelson, this is beautiful. Thank you.
Is that Mario?
That was, very good.
Cool, thanks, Mario.
Mario, did you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, it just brought me two great thoughts, right?
That's good.
One is it comes from theology, right? We as Christians, we pray for unity because it's the foundation of peace. Whereas if you analyze a piece of your body, for instance, as a separate entity, if it's damaged, you just cut it off, right? Let's say you broke your leg. If you don't see your leg as part of yourself, you just cut off your leg. Now, if you see it's part of yourself, what do? You heal it because it's you.
Right.
Therefore, that's how we see our interactions is, if we are part of one, there is always this it's self-interest to heal what is hurt around us.
Beautiful.
And that's what brings peace. With if you disdain what's hurt, then it affects you. And I like the concept where Gandhi says, well, how do you change the world? Because if you acknowledge that there is healing processes to be done, then you say, where do I start, right? And then Gandhi says to start with yourself, how to change the world by changing yourself, because you can't really do much outside. So I think the concept of oneness is helpful to understand the importance of healing. And the concept of self-agency is important as much as I'm healing myself, I'm helping the others as well, because I am part of the others and of Earth and of everything. And that's those two thoughts that came to my mind by your beautiful presentation. Thank you.
That's beautiful, Mario. I wrote that down because I didn't want to use that in the future. It's really an amazing connection between wholeness and healing. And I use both those words in my title of my book, but I hadn't really seen it that way. It's really, really helpful. And Daphne says, you mentioned in language influence perception of what the words mean. Would you agree language is inherently full of biases? Yeah, I think that's true. And what I really notice in the conversations that I've been having or witnessing around significant issues, real issues, because I'm on Clubhouse and there's a lot of conversation going on Clubhouse, which is probably where I met Anuraj at some point. I don't know. It's through the SSE. But that we don't listen often to be really transformed by each other, by what we hear. We often listen or debate or come back with an argument. And I think language, is often coming from our head. And the more we can understand what it feels like to speak from the heart authentically, and it's sort of you have to feel what that feels like, then language the biases become evident or become neutral. Like I think when we speak from our heart, the biases that we have just sort of are absorbed by people. They can take it because it's not coming from this judgmental place. It's coming from an open place, a vulnerable place. So I think the trick is not to somehow fix language, make it less biased or less ambiguous, but to actually just speak from a different place in ourselves so that the words carry our love as they come out in a way. Thank you for that question.
Wonderful. I think what Mario was saying earlier about obviously the Gaia philosophy very much interlinked with this state of wholeness and that interconnectedness that we talk about. Sky, you started off talking with about the Aboriginal dream time, and those cultures are some of the most ancient and living cultures on the planet. And we've also got the Greek, you talked about Chronos, but there's also the concept of Kairos, right? Something more meaningful at a particular juncture in time. How do you see that? And also then the point you made about the pixels and patterns, which is that analogous or correlated to the wave particle duality concept? So just wanted to raise a few points of discussion.
Yes, so the wave particle duality is related to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And the uncertainty principle says there's a finite relationship between position and momentum. You can only the tighter you locate the position, the more you spread out the momentum. Well, the two spaces I talked about, the space-time and the frequency domain, are literally the position and the momentum. That's what they are. So you have position and time, and momentum and energy. And that's, in physics, that's what they are. So, and actually Heisenberg got his uncertainty principle from the Fourier transform, because when you do a Fourier transform, you're multiplying position times frequency. Position times momentum. And there's a trade-off. You can never make one infinitely large or small. So you actually get the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and the wave particle duality from the Fourier transform, ultimately. So that's why I say what I'm trying to do is like take all these clues and say what's really being said is this is what quantum mechanics is. It's this Fourier transform relationship. And every physicist agrees that this Fourier transform relationship is at the center of quantum mechanics. But generally we don't actually put it there as a foundational physical concept, and mostly that's because of time. When we do a Fourier transform and we convert to the frequency domain, we lose the variable. So can you imagine what it means to lose time altogether? That means there's this eternal, you see this representation, which is eternal. And that's where you get the sense of wholeness of paths. There's no description of time when you look at that path in the frequency domain. What does that mean? That's what I'm trying to interpret.
Sky, may I ask a question?
Yeah, Daphne.
I like the concept of wholeness and the concept of living in flow. But I would like to see how this concept addressed generational social trauma to a specific group of people. There's some group that are easier living in flow because there's certain things that were afforded to them for whatever reason. It's not about evaluating the reason why they get it and some don't. You know, those things exist. There's a certain group of people that could get into flow because there's certain experience they do not have, that they don't have to handle, they don't have to live with every day. They have trauma, but it's different. You understand? But how does living in flow address that? Because I have been going to all the different groups, keeping tabs on who's talking about these concepts. And there's a lot of people missing in this conversation. And
I have a really big concern. Sorry, are you done? Didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, did not mean to cut you off. There's a lot of, I think, privilege that shows up in this conversation around synchronicity. Like access to synchronicity also sometimes means access to having multiple opportunities to try something, multiple pathways to try something. And if you're in a situation where you've been incarcerated or you're in poverty and you don't have multiple opportunities to make mistakes or try things different ways, you don't have the same type of privilege to learn about synchronicity or to experience opportunities in the way that maybe, for instance, I might have, or somebody else who has more, is not targeted by police profiling, for instance. So I think that's really important to recognize that synchronicity is a concept that I think it needs to be turned into a practical principle, a practical way of living, but it's not something that just is equally accessible to all people inside the structures of society, because the structures of society have a long history of consolidating power for one group of people or some groups of people and against other groups, away from other groups of people. And that limits, for instance, with redlining in the housing market in the United States, African-American Black people were kept out of the housing market intentionally in order to block generational wealth building. And so that's a force that just blocks the ability to live with this synchronicity as a benefit. So I think what synchronicity and flow allows us to do is and this is why wholeness is important. When we realize that the choices, for me in my privilege, the choices I'm making are influencing other people in a way that limits their wholeness, limits their access to information, limits their access to wealth, limits their access to property, limits their access to voting. In the United States right now, we have voting rights issues that are really big. We need to call our senators right now and make sure they vote in favor of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, HR 4, because these are the ways in which wholeness can come forth through equity. And we need to use the power of synchronicity to influence these things if we can, by engaging. But it takes real work on the ground and social change, political action.
May I say a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
So how do the folks in this space check that they are actually doing and seeing and providing opportunities to actually impact changes where it's not just another movement talking, we're seeing all the right things, but if you dig deep 7 levels down and you look around, you still see the same group of people telling another group of people what to do. You understand what I'm saying? Like history is repeating itself with all this technology, with all these intelligent people, with all these, to me, those are soundbite, because I'm walking around to see when is it going to filter down? When are they going to say something where I could see, oh, okay, I could take that to my folks. I could take that to my community. You know, because as is right now, they won't even understand what I'm saying. They won't even accept it from me because they will still see it as privilege because I'm educated. You understand? It's like I really want to take part into something that take into account that when we mean change, we do mean change. It's not, let's do it again differently, you know. Just what are the criteria? What are the self-governing things that we have to check that, you know, that we are not repeating history, except we color coding it and make it look good.
That's such an important set of criteria to put forth. And I really appreciate what your struggle is with your community, conveying, you know, thoughts and ideas that look nice and sound nice from maybe a white bias-based influence community that doesn't apply or doesn't translate or isn't trusted or whatever. I don't know what the right word is for you. You know, the work that I feel is important for me that I understand is understanding how privilege affects the world. The privilege I experience, I can speak to, and I can practice listening better, listening at a deeper level, and creating space for to step back and allow leadership to come from many different perspectives. So I think that's something that does not happen in white circles a whole lot. White communities are very, in my experience, focused on their ideas, white people like myself, often our ideas, and getting it right and having a right and wrong conversation and not actually listening from the heart or making space for others with different perspectives. So I think that's listening in this new way, or it's not new for many people, but it's new for, I think, the white community, is a crucial piece of the puzzle. So I try and engage in education in that regard.
Thank you. That's really, you know, I know every time me and you, because we're in the US, when we talk about diversity, we break it down to color, but I was more looking for everything in terms of we create a world where there's no ism, because I think ism is what we created, the division. It's not necessarily only based on race between the Black and white relationship, but it's also between people of different faith, you know, between people, whatever different, anything different should have a voice and should have room to the table. That's gonna add, not just to have a voice sake, but to come to heal. I don't want people in our circle whose purpose is to just be talking and to create division and to take people out of flow, but it's to create a tapestry. That's what I call it, like of different color, of different shape, or different things, but they create a beautiful tapestry where everybody fits right in, and we all get along. It's what I'm more looking for when I'm sharing these things. It's like, make sure whoever we're inviting is here to continue the healing movement, not division.
It's like you talked about the filters earlier. You know, you said it's about, and really that correlates to the angle of vision. And even Swami Satchitananda talks about the world is nothing but your angle of vision. And the moment you change your filters, your perception of humanity changes entirely. And I think that's where Daphne's saying, you know, it's how do we position that in a lot more appropriate sense and positive way.
And I know, Anuraj, I know you have to go, so can I make a closing point there?
Sure. No, that's okay. I've extended my time. So if you guys are, I'm happy to continue another 10 minutes if you.
Okay.
And I wanted Stephen Alte, who's joined us too, if you're able to join in, and it's great to have you here. I know you were busy, so if you wanted to say.
I really appreciate the direction of this conversation, because this is the work that's closest to my own intention of why I think this work is important. And I recently put a blog, a 5-part blog on my synchronicityinstitute.com website, which addresses or tries to, you know, just understand and unpack from the lens of wholeness, the issue of insecurity, human insecurity, and how that leads to these bigger questions of power struggle and you know, the history of at least racism that I'm familiar with in the United States is really about power, one group maintaining power and doing what they need to do to entrench power. So, but I think that ultimately the mindset of colonialism, I argue that it sort of seems related to insecurity, human insecurity that we carry around. And in synchronicity, hopefully, is a way for folks to, when they have enough, to sort of look and say, I have enough. Why am I still worried about having enough? Why am I still worried about holding other people back? I want to look at investing in the world in a sense of wholeness and be part of the world and feel connected to others, rather than isolate myself in my house away from the surrounding community. So seeing those connections.
Exactly. Now, Stephen's been driving in Japan. I know he's multitasking there.
I am indeed driving in Japan.
Yeah.
I am indeed driving in Japan, and apologies, Sky, for being a little late. So I'm Stephen Eltier from the Wisdom Path. So we're, and I do want to ask a brief question around the implicate and explicit order, because in many ways, what you're speaking to, you know, in terms of Boom's theories and what you're trying to prove, if we actually shift, and it speaks right to Daphne, right? Our entire world is based on an explicit order, and in fact, our currencies are derived from that. And if we were in turn to shift towards frequency and the implicate order and currencies of synchronicity and unconditional love and wisdom, then the world would actually be based on an entirely different foundation. In fact, it would be more of a formless foundation than one of form, and more based on, you know, an acceptance and an understanding and an integration of the invisible, which in terms would bring wholeness, right? So all the things that we're talking about, healing and wholeness, and the, you know, the currencies that are currently not available to those that don't have the same privilege, all relates to the way that we have interpreted and focused on the explicit order rather than the implicate. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to that, about what you see, you know, if we're to connect right now with our future selves and take direction from the future selves, then we would actually be connecting directly with the implicate order and with the language of the implicate order, and also with the currencies of the implicate order, which are really quite significantly different than how the world is currently set up. So I'm going to put you, my wife has just ordered for my daughter and her from from a little, what is this called here, Mossburger. So I'm going to let you answer me while I focus on my wife and daughter for a second. But I think you get, I mean, I'm totally present to what you're sharing. Yeah. So I'm really very grateful for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, that's I think the point of the implicate order is to, from a cosmological perspective, to say there's something else going on underlying things. And what I think the reason, or the important aspect of that, is that I see the way synchronicity shows up is as a learning process, that we're here to experience the challenges that are appropriate to us at the moment in time that we experience them. I think that there's some danger in generalizing that I don't think that there's a sense that everything that happens for a reason, but that we can, I can look at some of the experiences that I've had personally and see that some of the difficulties I've experienced have some learning in them that was necessary for me. I think this, at a really simple level and basic everyday level, can help guide the way that we think about challenges. But some of the challenges we face that are systemic are much more entrenched over years and years of different types of actions. So systems that are built to oppress people do not allow for subtle shifts in attitude that can sort of shift the situation at all. So I think there is a danger in thinking that these principles can apply broadly to society. I think that they apply in mindset, in the microscopic way, and the more we work towards a certain heartfelt outcome, the more we see that synchronicity showing up to make that true in the world. But it doesn't mean that we can somehow magically fix any circumstance. And I really have an issue with things like the law of attraction that imply that if we just have the right mindset, we could change these things. These things have been put in place from decades and not centuries and millennia of thinking that has been oppressive or backwards in many cases. So I'd just like to make that distinction.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I truly hear you. And one of the things that we've been working on diligently on the Wisdom Path is actually creating the kind of consciousness and awareness necessary right throughout community that can bring about exactly what you're talking about. You know, changes that are rooted systemically and fundamentally in consciousness right across this planet. So the kinds of, you know, inequality that Daphne's speaking to is, you know, it requires a revolution. And I am hoping that you and Julia and many others like us present here can, you know, bring about that revolution of consciousness where we recognize, you know, it's high time that those inequalities were shifted. And I think there's such a power in adopting, as Daphne was speaking to, you know, a new language, because when we've got foundations that are based on very archaic and very historical ways of speaking and seeing the problem, then you're not going to approach a new solution from, you know, when your foundations are resting in old language and old consciousness.
I feel like I didn't hear fully the last thing that you said, Daphne, actually, and I would wonder if you'd be willing to share the distinction that you made when you're talking more generally about any groups that have divisions between them. Would you be willing to restate that?
Yeah, because a lot of time because I'm a Black woman and I'm usually the only one in our environment with majority white male and some other male from different figure, when I mention diversity, they bring back to color. And because that's what we used to in the United States, or that's the dynamic that we've been taught throughout our history. But that's not all there is to culture. It's not about color. And I think for me, personally, it's only in the United States we have color. Everywhere else, they have nationality. You are connected to your family name. You are connected to your region. You're connected to your community. There's no color. So we come to a place now, that's all, you know, it's multicultural, multi things, because the relationship between the Black and white in the US and majority in the world, period, it's a hierarchical based on who's on top and who's in the bottom because of resources. So I was just saying that if we're going to do this, let's not only, diversity is not on color. If you're looking at age between young people and older people, you're dismissing the relationship, the dynamic, that's the problem.
Right.
If you're looking at a gender, male and female, in terms of compensation, men and women get paid very differently. That's an issue. If you're looking at religion, depending on how much the Christianity have impact, that's an issue. The reason I bring that up, as an educator, I had to learn to navigate all of those things per child in a classroom per day. And because my gift is education, and I like the young people in front of me, it was easy for me to follow suit. Even when I made a mistake, I would come and have the young person teach me right there and then. I didn't make any excuse for it, but it's easy for me because I'm coming from the lens of an educator who want to take out the best from that student to put them in the world who's going to see less than that. And I think language, the change that we need to really do is language. The reason I've been off White Mirror is based on the title alone. I don't know anything about this movement. All I saw was White Mirror. And I was thinking, okay, what's the opposite of White Mirror? And in your conversation, you said Black Mirror is negative, is this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. You know, it's like, why come white is associated with purity and all of it? That's an issue that always been in our mind. And then Black Mirror, anything Black is usually negative, the devil. You understand what I'm saying? It's
absolutely
because the color is so rooted in our culture in the US. I can only speak in US. I don't know anybody anywhere else. I can only talk because you asked me. That's one part, but it's all of the ism that I'm talking about. That give room for people to be or wholeness of who they are. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's if we have to give a mirror, give the person a mirror, why does the mirror need a title? A mirror is a mirror. So
Yeah.
what
Right.
they see shouldn't be based on the color. It should be based on what area in their lives that they need to change and improve. So the purpose of the mirror, if it's like, what do you see? You know, what would you like to see? You know, it's in the question. It's under language. It's very rooted in languages.
And you pointed to that language limits wholeness. The way we phrase our
Yes.
words limits what we can
Yes.
understand.
Yeah, and isn't that what manifestation, we teach manifestation, is you have to say the words as if it already happened. I am, you know, what I like about the Flow project in our circle is Stevens. He comes in with this bass, and I can't wait to hear it. It's like a smile. Why? Because of these words, the way he described his experience. When I'm listening to Anuraj and Mario, I like reading him. He just sit there, he just read. It's the choice. The choice word, how we address our communication, need to start talking of healing and wholeness itself. You know,
Yes.
I like I listened to you. I showed up today because I was interested in the work as a math person. But now that you're talking about synchronicity, flow, and wholeness, I'm like, wow, that start with language, manifestation. It's at its best. You know, the different. Stephen will call it awareness. I try not to repeat what he said because I don't want to mess it up. But that's what attracted me to him. It's his words, the way he uses the words. It calms me down and ground me and center me, and it's healing. It's inviting. It's wholeness. So that's just to give you more explanation without.
Daphne, I'll just add.
Thank
sorry,
you.
I think you're spot on with exactly what you just said, and that's why I felt so guilty when initially we were calling it white mirror, because I originally was calling it wise mirror. In fact, that's what I named the original topic and the presentation also. But it was more the expectation from the Netflix documentary of Black Mirror, the flip to a white mirror. But I totally agree, because most people
Daphne is suggesting how buried it is in the culture.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's why we need to make sure we're very careful with the words that we use and that's why I much more prefer calling it wise mirror. And you're right, it's exactly the reflection of what we want to see out there. That's the true nature of what I think all of us bring here for what we mean by our white or wise mirror concept. Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. And I'm taking away how much language relates to wholeness. When we use words that are inviting and understanding and empathetic and illustrate what we've heard from others and what we understand their reception of our words will be, when we're aware of those things, it invites wholeness, it invites healing, it invites connection. When we're unaware of the impact that our words have, it separates us from them or creates emotions that make us like not want to connect. So that's my takeaway. Thank you, Daphne.
But I wanted to also to remind why Black Mirror chose itself that name. It was not because of color. It was actually because of the telephones. Because I'm talking from a phone, right? But if you're looking around, everybody's talking to a screen, right? It looks like a mirror because it looks like a narcissist. Looks like we've been taken over by narcissists. Perceptions, because it looks like we're looking at the mirror. And if you look at a phone when it's off, it's black. So that's the reason why they chose the name Black Mirror, to make fun of the smartphone revolution that was just starting in 28. When they launched was 2010, 3 years into the smartphone revolution. They had that foresight. Oh, this is a narcissistic society that just looks into the phone and forgets the context they're embedded.
Yeah, but again, I think the important thing is that the culture has this language that has an impact, whether or not it was intentional or not.
Thank you, Sky. Even in his explanation, he supported what I just said. He said when they wanted to make fun of it, when the screen went black, they made fun of it. When it was on, it's like even in his own explanation, he supported the cultural, in it. Like somebody like me, you can explain that. It's just there.
Yeah, it's so much a part of our culture and our language that we're embedded in our own language that it's I think what we can do is become ever more aware and sensitive to an understanding of the impacts of our actions. And that's what I think an ultimate focus of wholeness really does. Understanding the broad connections between the things we choose to do and the responses we get from the universe around us, and how to pay attention to that and understand it. You know, Carl Jung talked about symbology, and symbols are very much a part of synchronicity. So I think it's important to notice, like, what is the outcome of what I'm saying? What is this symbol? What does it symbolize? What's the impact on others? Even if it's not what I intend, it's actually about the impact.
Very nice.
So, yeah, thank you everybody for having me here. It's
Yeah,
been really a beautiful conversation.
thank you so much, Sky. That has really been very enlightening. I think you've brought on light such amazing topics for flow, for synchronicity, even serendipity. I think we've still got so many more things we'd love to discuss, but maybe we can do it at the next White Mirror call, and love to have you there, and we continue our conversation and all the great work that you know, everybody here is doing with the Wisdom Path project, with the Flow project. I think we all collide to bring our energies and thoughts to some amazing revelations for humanity. So thanks you so much.
I'd love to let everybody know how they can reach me on my work. I'm doing workshops once a month. Next one is September 12th. I think the next one that's free is October 3rd. And it's a 3-hour workshop, which goes in more depth to the stuff we talked about today. And
Great.
I'm also going to be at Burning Man giving a couple of free talks. So
Yes. Do you mind sharing those?
I want
on
to
the,
check you out in Burning Man. I definitely want to see you.
oh, good. I love that. Yeah, I'll put the link
Maybe you
in the
can share
chat.
it in the WhatsApp channel.
Okay,
Sky,
yeah.
for everybody. Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
Yeah,
do you-
thank you. WhatsApp would be great.
Do you have a mailing list?
Yes, I do. Just go to my website, synchronicityinstitute.com, and it'll pop up. Love to have you.
And I just want to quickly add this.
Sky, thank you so much. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was just going to say thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to meet you and connect in unconditional love and synchronicity and wisdom. It's very beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to add, this is very synchronistic for me because I've been working on quantum coaching and working with future self, Stephen, and had this like amazing epiphany that my future self is now been leaving signs for myself in this reality by leaving the cupboards open. And yeah, just you've showed up with a lot of the science around it, because it's been just purely intuition and I've been downloading it because to me it makes sense that we're in a dream. So if we're in a dream, then we can go to the highest potential, extract information for now, but also reversing that and going backwards to clear the lessons and the patterns. So this is very aligned. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to thank you too, Sky. It was wonderful. My future self is saying, you got to study more about this Sky guy. He's got some really good stuff to say. So I'm really looking forward to studying more what you've put up here. And I really appreciate you sharing it with you very much.
I really appreciate all the love. Thank you.
Thank you too, Sky, so much for the opportunity to give me a space to talk about language and wholeness. And I didn't know how to approach this group since I've been in this space, and you provided a safe way to express it, because my goal is union. I love union. I like diversity. I like all of this stuff. So, and I love that technology is making the world smaller. You know, it's, what is it on our word? What time is it by us right now? Start, I know you're 3 hours behind me. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm with a group of wonderful people, and technology is making it happen, you know. And the language thing, I would love it because I speak 5 languages, but that's beside the point. So that's key. I think when we start using the affirmative words, that list, it won't feel so fake to people. It's gonna be, that's how we talk, that's how we live, that's how we interact, that's who we are. You know, the whole energy of the world, like Samantha said, you know, it's just gonna, it won't feel like, oh, those people, those hippies, you know, it's gonna be just the world. That's who we are. You know, that's gonna be great. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you, and I love it. I love it.
Thank you for showing up, Daphne. Appreciate it.
We'll continue this conversation for sure. Thank you again.
Okay.
Beautiful, guys. See you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Sky.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Sky. Much love.
Much love.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Stephen.